All right, let's talk about subject to, aka predicated offers. Now, I understand that in many states you might hear different terminology, and some of these things are a little bit different. But let's talk about how to exert leverage and also how to smartly navigate these subject to offers, aka predicated offers. So what these things basically are is somebody saying, I am going to buy your house if I sell mine. Or once I sell my house, I'm going to buy your house. Now then, how you want to handle this is very different whether you are a listing agent or a buyer's agent. For example, if you're the listing agent on a property and somebody submits a subject to, aka predicated offer, you want to find out a few things. Number one, is their house listed? Is it under contract? Now, if their house is under contract and they've been through inspections and the appraisal is done, and they're pre-approved, I mean, you basically have a ready, willing, and able buyer. Now, they might not be as surefire as a cash offer, but if their house is listed under contract and they've been through inspections and appraisals, I mean, they're probably going to go to a closing, which means they're going to buy your house. So you can treat that differently than if you're the listing agent and they say, well, we want to write a predicated offer on your house, and just say, okay, what is it predicated on? What's predicated on their house? And they don't have it listed yet. Okay, well, is it being listed tomorrow? Well, no, they got to do some repairs and they got to get some things straightened up and everything else. Effectively, what you're doing as the listing agent in this time is you're taking your client's house off the market while they get ready to put their house on the market. Okay, now in our state, there's two different types of predications. There's an open predication and there's a closed predication. With an open predication, that means that the seller can look at other offers, generally speaking, but with closed, that means nobody else can write you another offer as long as this deal's in place. And so here's the thing, if their house is under contract through inspections and appraisals, then you would consider a closed predication offer. However, if they're not even listed yet, or if they're not getting activity, or if you research the house and you see they're dramatically overpriced, you do not want to consider a closed predication offer, because what you're doing is you're taking your client's house off the market, waiting for something to sell that's either not on the market or it's not likely to sell. Okay, so that is the fastest way to get your client very frustrated at you. So understand what you're dealing with. Have this conversation with your client and let them know, hey, these people, they're predicated, but they're going to come in with a ridiculous offer because they don't have leverage. Okay, they don't have any leverage because they're writing a subject to or predicated offer. And so a lot of times in these situations, buyers will make a ridiculous offer to tie up a house. And so here's the thing, if you've got a client who's not in a hurry, they're not desperate to sell, and you feel like their house is going to sell relatively soon or eventually, maybe you consider it. Maybe you consider the predicated offer because it's a good result for your client. But knowing how these things work, knowing when you have leverage and knowing how to negotiate them is critical. If you have a house that's getting tons of activity, you probably don't want to accept any sort of closed predicated offer unless you know their deal is going to go through. Okay? Even just accepting an open predication offer makes buyers pull back from looking at your property sometimes because they feel like they're going up against an offer that's already accepted. So they feel like they're going to have to offer way too much for a house because you've already got an open predication offer. In these situations, you have to be careful. You, as a listing agent, you're going to want the house to be as available as it can to the public so that anybody feels like they can come in and write an offer and scoop it up. As the buyer's agent, if you're acting in that role, you're going to want to tie up the house. You're going to want to tie it up for a longer period of time under an open predication situation. You're going to want to tie up the house for your client. But understand you don't have much leverage to do so. So you might have to tell your client, hey, we have to write an amazing offer for them to even consider this. Knowing how to leverage these two situations, depending on which side of the fence you are, listing agent versus buyer's agent, is key to being a great real estate agent. Once again, if you're the listing agent, the very simple rule of thumb is you don't want to be tied down to anything that's not a sure thing. If you're the buyer's agent, you want to try to tie it down. Very simple. You're operating under two completely opposite frames of mind. And so knowing how to leverage that and knowing how to negotiate that based on your local paperwork and based off of the local market conditions is important.